years ago. But that applied to legal immigrants who had accepted the jurisdiction of the United States by obeying its immigration laws and who had taken up legal permanent residence subject to a treaty ratified by the Senate. Does the president have the authority by the executive orders to clear up this matter as part of his organic constitutional responsibility to take care that the laws be faithfully executed? I don't know. Obama claimed the authority to create a legal residency for DACA beneficiaries out of thin air, so maybe he does. The court will ultimately rule. So does the Congress have the authority to clear up this matter by statute? Well, only if that statute doesn't contradict the Constitution. And here's the fine point of the matter. If the 14th Amendment does not give automatic birthright citizenship to the children of those here illegally and temporarily, then no law should be necessary to deny them citizenship in the future because no law ever extended that right in the first place. In that case, the president's executive order is merely declaratory of existing law. Now, several lower courts have stayed the president's executive order, and no one is screaming, that's a constitutional crisis, even though many of us strenuously disagree with those judges, just as strenuously as the left disagrees with the president. Ultimately, though, we have faith in our Constitution. And as the case progresses through the courts, we will get a clear and authoritative ruling that will then determine whether the president's order stands or whether Congress needs to act either by statute or constitutional amendment. To call this a constitutional crisis is a kind of absurd and juvenile hyperbole that passes for argument these days by the woke left. And I look forward to returning to society someday when we can have civil discussions over high principles as our founders envisioned. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from New Jersey, Ms. McIver, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate the New Jersey 10 winners of the 2024 Congressional App Challenge. Aman, Alexa, Charlie, and Gabriel teamed up to make tailored trivia. The app allows users to create customized trivia games that make studying and memorization more interactive. This tool lets students test SAT vocab words, learn phrases in new languages, and quiz their classmates. In creating this app, Aman, Alexa, Charlie, and Gabriel also grew their skills in coding, design, and teamwork. I am so proud of their hard work and dedication and their contributions to New Jersey, and I am excited to see what they will accomplish next. Mr. Speaker, I rise to celebrate Salih, a New Jersey 10th student at West Orange High School who received a perfect score on the SAT this year. Less than 1% of SAT test takers earn a perfect score each year, and Salih's accomplishment is nothing short of extraordinary. His SAT preparation was largely self-directed, relying on free resources and using his time and determination to study for the exam. Beyond academics, he is deeply involved in extracurricular activities at West Orange High School. He has been a dedicated member of the cross-country and track teams since 7th grade and spent 2 seasons on the color guard. Salih is also the president of the math team, chapter president of the National Honor Society, a varsity chess team member, and part of the Royal Strings Ensemble. His involvement in multiple activities and honor societies speaks to his well-rounded excellence. After graduating high school, he hopes to attend Harvard and study law. Any school would be lucky to have a bright young mind. What an incredible accomplishment and a shining example of New Jersey's excellence. Congrats, Salih. You make New Jersey proud. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. De La Cruz, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 5 minutes.
Objection.
I rise today to honor Amigo Power Equipment in Edinburgh, Texas, for 50 years of service to our community. Founded in 1974 by Janice and Kent Johnson, Amigo Power Equipment sold tractors and combines to farmers and ranchers throughout South Texas. As the Rio Grande Valley grew, so did their business. The Johnsons passed down their business to their youngest son, Jeff, and over the years, it has become the premier tractor and power sports dealership in the Valley. When visiting their store, you will find knowledgeable staff with years of experience and exceptional customer service. Congratulations to the Johnsons and the entire staff on this incredible milestone. Thank you for your dedication to the Rio Grande Valley community. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to share the positive impacts the Social Security Fairness Act that has already been made for South Texans. Before this bill, millions of public servants like teachers, police officers, and firefighters were unfairly punished by reduced Social Security benefits. After being signed into law last month, this legislation finally eliminated the provisions that reduced Social Security benefits for public servants. I've heard back from teachers in South Texas who are incredibly thankful to have the legislation finally signed into law. I am proud to have co-sponsored this bill in the House, advocated for its passage, and played an important role in expanding access to benefits for those who have gone above and beyond to serve our communities. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to honor State District Judge Rose Guerra Reina for her service to Hidalgo County. Earlier this month, Judge Reina announced that after 28 years, she will be retiring from her role. For over 2 decades, she has upheld the rule of law with fairness and justice in Hidalgo County. She has presided over thousands of cases, worked to improve the judicial process, and mentored many young attorneys throughout her tenure. Though she will be missed, her legacy will live on in the courtroom. Her commitment to justice in South Texas is unwavering, and we are so fortunate to have public servants like Judge Reina in South Texas. We wish her the best as she carries out her term and begins her well-deserved retirement. Congratulations, Judge. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to address the issue that is critical to my community in South Texaco, Mexico's refusal to fulfill its water obligation. Their refusal to comply with the agreements of the 1944 Water Treaty has caused mass devastation with our farmers and ranchers in South Texas. Last Congress, we had our one sugar mill in Texas closed. That was 500 jobs that were lost and millions of dollars of economic impact in South Texas. Food security is national security, and we have lost our sugar mill, and we are on the verge of losing our citrus industry. We ask that the Mexican government repay us the water that they owe us, which is now over 1 million acre-feet of water. It is simply unacceptable that the Mexican government has not given us that water that they owe us. This not only affects the people of South Texas, but affects the entire nation. Again, food security is national security, and we urge the Mexican government to pay us our water immediately. Thank you. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Correa, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life and legacy of World War II hero and U.S. Navy Corpsman Jack Gutman, who passed away just a few days before his 99th birthday. Jack answered the call to serve his nation after the attack on Pearl Harbor. He was barely 18 when he enlisted as a corpsman in the Navy. Jack defended our country in some of the most harrowing battles of the war, including bravely providing care to the wounded on the beaches of Normandy during D-Day. Years after returning home, along with his invisible wounds, Jack sought help from the VA and received treatment for his PTSD. His recovery inspired him to dedicate his life to help fellow veterans find courage and to seek support for their own PTSD challenges. Sergeant Gutman's life of service to this country and his fellow veterans continue to be an inspiration for all of us. And I ask all of you, my colleagues, to join me in celebrating the life and legacy of my good friend, American hero, Jack Gutman, part of America's greatest generation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life and legacy of U.S. Army veteran Roy Edward Neely. Sergeant Neely served our nation proudly as a Green Beret in the elite 1st Special Forces Command Airborne. Roy's dedication and service to our country continued after he left the military. As a civilian, he worked as an operations manager. Roy married Elaine McDonald in 1972, and together they built a life filled with love and beautiful memories. Our community lost Sergeant Neely on October 12, 2024, at the age of 76. His memory lives on through his loving wife, children, grandchildren, and our Orange County community. Sergeant Neely, thank you for your service to our country, dedication to our community. We will miss you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to mourn the loss of John Reginald Reg Murphy, who unfortunately passed away last November. Mr. Murphy was a true Renaissance man who lived an extraordinary life guided by curiosity, integrity, engagement, and helping those in need. Mr. Murphy was raised in Gainesville and attended Mercer University, where he began his journalism career. Throughout his career, Mr. Murphy experienced success working in a variety of esteemed publications, including the Macon Telegraph and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Shortly after, he was chosen as a Nieman Fellow at Harvard University in 1959. Mr. Murphy went on to serve as the editor and publisher of the San Francisco Examiner, and then he became the publisher and CEO of the Baltimore Sun. Throughout his life and career, Mr. Murphy stayed true to his morals and strong ethical compass. Mr. Murphy is survived by his wife, Diana, daughters Karen and Susan, 2 grandsons, sister, and 3 nieces and nephews. Mr. Murphy will always be remembered as humble, approachable, gentle, and a kind man. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize Marlon Lawrence, a custodian at Mary Lee Clark Elementary School in Camden County, for being named the South Region winner in Georgia Leadership Institute for School Improvement's Hidden Heroes campaign. This recognition celebrates unsung leaders in education whose dedication makes a profound impact on their schools and their communities. Marlon's hard work and commitment to maintaining a clean, welcoming, and inclusive environment have helped create a space where students and staff can thrive. This achievement reflects the collective teamwork at Mary Lee Clark Elementary, where everyone works together to ensure student success. Principal Rika Dow has praised Marlon for his unwavering dedication and innovative approach, making him a model for others to follow. On behalf of the community and as your congressman, I commend Marlon Lawrence for his exceptional contributions and thank him for the example he sets. Congratulations, Marlon, on this well-deserved recognition. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life of Miss Elizabeth Catherine Pryor, a civil rights activist, educator, and pillar in the Savannah community who passed away last month. Ms. Pryor was an activist, joining the civil rights movement at a young age, where she proudly participated in organized sit-ins, marches, and peaceful protests in the city of Savannah. After graduating from Savannah State College and Georgia Southern University, Ms. Pryor served as an educator in the Savannah-Chatham County Public School District for more than 4 decades. As a lifelong member of the NAACP, Ms. Pryor was a strong proponent of voting rights. She was also among the activists who were instrumental in the renaming of West Broad Street to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Ms. Pryor served on the board of directors of the Ralph Mark Gilbert Civil Rights Museum and was the former Grand Marshal for the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade. Ms. Pryor is survived by her 2 daughters and many other beloved relatives and friends. Ms. Pryor will always be remembered for her dedication to advocating for justice, change, and equality. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life of Mr. Joseph Ryan Willis, Jr., a man of faith, service, and dedication. Born in 1957 in Plant City, Florida, Joe was raised by his loving parents, Rylan and Gail. He was active in church and sports, demonstrating a commitment to faith and teamwork from a young age. In 1982, he married Stacy, his lifelong partner, and together they built a beautiful life, raising 3 wonderful sons, Patrick, Timothy, and David. Joe earned a business degree from Augusta University and had a distinguished career in hospitality and real estate. He worked at Augusta National Golf Club, Sea Island Company, and the Brunswick Country Club. Joe later became a top-producing realtor specializing in luxury properties. A devoted church leader, Joe served as an elder and deacon, supporting organizations like Manna House of Brunswick and contributing to community events. He was known for his generosity, his kindness, and willingness to help others, always offering a listening ear and thoughtful advice. Joe found joy in family, good friends, music, cycling, and long walks on the beach with his dogs. His legacy of service, faith, and love for his community will continue to inspire all those who knew him. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania, Ms. Scanlon, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to speak about the White House's pet project, the Department of Government Inefficiency, otherwise known as DOGE. For the past month, our federal workers and agencies have been assaulted by a dilettante billionaire empowered by President Trump to muck about in Americans' lives and federal agencies. Americans are justifiably concerned that these unelected intruders are acting as judge and jury on people's lives and livelihoods as they gleefully and illegally feed tens of thousands of jobs and vital programs into a wood chipper. This billionaire and his tech bros claim to have found billions in fraud, waste, and inefficiency, but their methods and results are shrouded in secrecy. When they've hyped their claims on Twitter or the White House press room, independent review has shown that their claims are false or riddled with errors. Buying condoms for Gaza didn't happen. Social Security payments to people who are 150 years old? Nope. $800 billion in savings on one contract? Oops. Maybe 800 million, they're not really sure. Absolutely nothing adds up. These dodgy efforts have introduced fraud, waste, and inefficiency into every agency they've touched with their invasions, freezes, and suspensions. Federal workers have been fired, then rehired, as their functions were quickly proven to be indispensable rather than non-essential. Employees have been bombarded with weird emails that threaten them with termination if they don't accept a sketchy buyout or snitch on their colleagues, and with demands that they interrupt their real work to do make work for review by people who have no understanding or interest in public service or government functions. Elon Musk's dodgy efforts are disrupting critical medical research and treatments, foreign aid, veterans care, criminal investigations, health, housing, and human services across the nation and beyond. It takes a remarkable combination of arrogance and stupidity to think that this is the best use of time for our intelligence officers, VA workers, air traffic controllers, FBI agents, and everyone else upon whom our nation depends to do their jobs well. If this is what bringing business acumen to government function looks like, it's pretty clear we need to prevent our government from becoming a dumpster fire like X or one of Trump's corrupt corporations. We can't afford it. The American people can't afford it. Mr. Speaker, it is well past time that Congress remove Mr. Musk and his dodgy minions from our government and get down to doing the people's business. I yield back.
Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities towards the president. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. LaMalfa, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Or once in a while, we could cooperate with the president and those that are trying to do things to make our government run better, ultimately for the better benefit of the citizens of this country, the taxpayers. So what we see with the DOGE is that $65 billion of savings have been found, and many, many contracts that are illegitimate or unnecessary to the operations of government, what people expect, are being turned over and are being rescinded. So, including the scandal that has been USAID, what started out as a good thing many years ago has been turned into something that is just almost completely corrupt. So let's take a look at some of the other items that DOGE has found. 104 DEI contracts, eliminating $1 billion in spending. I could go down a whole long list. $168,000 for a Dr. Fauci exhibit, $45 million DEI scholarship in Burma. What are we doing here when we got really difficult issues in our home districts and across the country, as well as a $2 trillion deficit? So this isn't going to solve everything overnight, but it serves the right step. So why don't we have cooperation by federal agencies that work for us, but ultimately for the American people? You know, here's the food chain. The people are on top, the voters that vote us in a republic to carry out what they tell us that they want done, and then we employ the people at the different levels of different agencies to get that work done for us, ultimately the American people. Why is that not being recognized here? That yes, we are supposed to hold them accountable. Yes, we're supposed to have oversight. And ultimately, when the oversight hearings don't work around here because it's 2 hours of run the clock out by the bureaucracy, then when you have an administration that has the executive authority to do that, and that's an important thing that keeps getting lost here. They have the executive authority to appoint people. That's what the entire administration is, people appointed by the executive branch, by the president, or at the state level, by a governor, or at a city, by a mayor, what have you. It's not a foreign concept. Certainly it's something that the Democrats, when they're in charge, have taken great advantage of to appoint people to do things. You know, I didn't vote for Fauci, did I? A whole lot of other people are wondering that too. That's what gets done by the executive branch. So we're talking Elon Musk, we're talking anybody in the president's cabinet and the people that they appoint. Yeah, they're appointed positions. It's our job to rein them in and hold them in line to whatever their mission statement was, if they remember their mission statement, to follow that. So the work DOGE is doing is pretty darn good. Yeah, there's some fits and starts here and there and some things we need to modify and smooth out a little bit on some of the employment out there, but at least the people's tax dollars are being respected finally. And we want to keep going with this and work that out. But we would like to be able to work with the agencies and say, hey, where are the areas that we could do better in? And what personnel are, you know, extra to the process? You know, certainly when there was the government shutdown due to COVID, and we saw how, well, these people are essential, these are non-essential. Like, well, that should have been pretty revealing right there. And that's tough if you're on the non-essential list. But you got to remember, we hire people in government. We create the agencies to serve a task, a purpose for the people of the country. It is not a government jobs program. It's a get a job done for the people program. One thing I'd like to point out here that came up last week in my home state of California as part of a considerable amount of savings we could do federally is to quit funding that high-speed rail project. It's been a boondoggle from day one. Right at the end of the Biden administration, they put up nearly $4 billion more at the end. So let's review on that real quick. The original high-speed rail program was going to be a $33 billion build-a-rail from San Francisco to L.A., and that has ballooned in the following years to $130 billion. and it was supposed to be completed by 2020. All they have is about an 1,800-foot long bridge near Fresno done right now. They haven't laid any track. They've seized a lot of land. They've devastated a lot of agricultural land, parts of cities, important installations, etc., but they haven't laid any rail yet. And they're trying to do first the easy part between Merced, California, and an orchard somewhere outside of Bakersfield. They actually said at the time, because they'll have the less resistance to build that portion. And that's not going to help anybody in SF or LA where the population base is. So basically, if you time it versus Amtrak, I think you get from Merced to Bakersfield about 20 minutes faster if they actually had a high-speed rail that ran all the way through on just this chunk of track. They don't. And they won't by at least 2033, 2035. To build out the whole thing, be a lot longer. We had a conference meeting in Los Angeles at Union Station last week. And I was very pleased. This was called by our Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, at the behest of the Trump administration. And so we had this opportunity to talk to the press, talk to the people of California, anybody that would listen, what such a boondoggle this high-speed rail project is. And it wants $4 billion of new money that we need to claw back and put towards something useful, such as fixing our highways, water infrastructure, anything besides this boondoggle. I yield back.
Thank you, sir. The chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Kennedy, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in defense of our dedicated federal public servants in the face of the relentless attacks from President Trump and Elon Musk. Hardworking families in my district and people across the country are beginning to see this initiative for what it really is. A sham perpetrated by President Trump and run by an unelected billionaire, the richest person in the world, who has no idea how our government operates or what our public servants do for our communities. Trump and Musk's goal is to undermine people's faith in public services, gain access to sensitive government data, and ultimately give away trillions of dollars in tax cuts for the rich. We know their game and we're not playing it. Last week, I met with union leaders representing our federal workforce, including the American Federation of Government Employees, National Nurses United, the National Association of Letter Carriers, the American Postal Workers Union, and Western New York Area Labor Federation. I'm deeply grateful for their work to empower our federal workforce, our air traffic controllers, veteran health care practitioners, Social Security benefit experts, and so many more who provide the services and assistance hardworking families in our communities deserve and need. But their ability to continue doing so is under immense threat. Union leaders on the front lines painted a picture in which our federal workers are living in fear of wrongful firings, receiving intimidating emails that are causing mass confusion, and receiving unclear directives from an administration that has no interest in the rule of law. These are workers who have dedicated their lives to public service. They help our parents and grandparents receive the Social Security they've earned and rely on. They deliver world-class care to our veterans who have sacrificed so much for our freedoms. They keep our borders secure, our air and water clean, our airports and skies safe, and so much more. They deserve our gratitude, not to be subjected to this demeaning and cruel treatment, especially as they continue to deliver for hardworking families amid it all. I've also spoken to constituents who have been impacted by these wrongful cuts. A young man named Jeff Plummer spoke to me hours before being wrongfully fired from the Internal Revenue Service. Jeff received exemplary reviews of his work within the IRS Small Business Self-Employed Division, which helps small businesses to comply with tax requirements, helping our regional economy to thrive. Due to the simple fact that he had worked for the IRS for less than a year, he was terminated. He's among 6,000 IRS employees that have been wrongfully fired, all in the middle of tax season. Jeff and his fellow IRS employees are not alone. Our veterans are being directly harmed and discriminated against. They're experiencing real harm as the services they rely on are being decimated. Service-disabled veterans are among the 8,500 federal employees in my district alone being attacked and dismissed for being DEI hires. I spoke with one disabled veteran who bled for our country and continued to serve as a federal employee for nearly 2 decades. He received a title change in the last year, which automatically put him on probationary status. He was fired last week with absolutely no justification. These veterans feel demeaned and betrayed. It's unthinkable and shameful to treat our military heroes this way. It violates the sacred honor that we have to care for our veterans and provide the services and benefits that they have earned and that they deserve. I've spoken to constituents myself. I've heard the palpable fear and anxiety our federal workers are feeling, which makes it impossible to deliver the best quality care and services for taxpayers, from caring for veterans and seniors to protecting our environment. As egg prices are skyrocketing due to bird flu and ravaging our farms, Trump and Musk have cut FDA and USDA employees, putting the health and well-being of our communities on the line. And after we saw the first commercial airline crash in 16 years, there's FAA employees being fired. Their message each time? These employees weren't mission critical. Don't worry, you won't miss them. Tell that to the senior whose medicine is contaminated due to lack of oversight, or to the airline passenger facing major delays because of a severe shortage of air traffic controllers. Meanwhile, unelected billionaire Elon Musk is celebrating on the world stage with a chainsaw in his hand, bragging about the degrading treatment of our public servants with no regard for the taxpayers who will suffer as a result because they cannot get the services that they rely on. But why wouldn't he celebrate? President Trump has illegally given him the keys to our Treasury, sensitive government data, and control of our federal workforce.
Time has expired.
We won't let him take a chainsaw to our federal workforce without a fight. That's why we're speaking up and speaking out and holding those accountable. And we ask our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to join in our fight. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Khanna, for 5 minutes.
President Trump campaigned around the country to drain the swamp. Yet one of the first things he did is reverse President Biden's executive order that banned White House officials from accepting gifts from lobbyists. So today, I am introducing the Drain the Swamp Act. It's pretty simple. It will ban any White House official from accepting gifts from lobbyists, and it will ban White House officials from becoming lobbyists during the Trump term. I believe that this bill will have support not just from progressives, not just from independents, but from the MAGA movement. That is why I'm calling on my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats, to pass the Drain the Swamp Act and send it to President Trump's desk so he can fulfill his promise. Mr. Speaker, the Trump administration is stripping millions of American seniors of their coverage of telehealth on March 31st. That's right. If you're a senior on Medicare, starting March 31st, your doctor's visits on video conference or Zoom or phone will no longer be covered. This is going to impact over 12 million Americans. And the crazy thing is that the inspector generals have found that there's only 0.2% of fraud in telehealth. So why are we taking telehealth away from millions of seniors who are homebound or who have difficulty leaving their homes? It is most devastating for rural Americans. That is why today I'm introducing the Telehealth Coverage Act. It will require Medicare to pay for telehealth services. Let us pass this act in a bipartisan way so that millions of American seniors aren't deprived of telehealth services because of the actions of the Trump administration. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Ohio, Mrs. Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to honor the career of a dedicated and true public servant, Detective Jerry Gatchett, who is retiring from the Akron Police Department. I am honored to be standing here today talking about a man who has served the Akron community so humbly for over 31 years and who I am proud to call a friend. Jerry was born in Alabama and raised in Akron, where he graduated from the John R. Buchtel High School in 1985. He then bravely served this country in the United States Army for 4 years. For the last 31 years, Jerry has served our community as a member of the Akron Police Department. He has worked as a hostage negotiator in the Financial Crimes Unit and for 21 years as a juvenile detective, where he investigated crimes against children. Throughout his distinguished career, Detective Gatchett has played a pivotal role in securing justice with his investigations, leading to hundreds of child predators imprisoned, solidifying his reputation as a champion for the community's most vulnerable. Jerry is one of the most caring and compassionate people that I know. In fact, throughout his career, he has taken the care to truly get to know the victims and survivors who he has been sworn to protect and serve. He has been to countless basketball games, baby showers, and more to celebrate these survivors who he cares so deeply for. He even walked one of the people he supported down the aisle at her wedding. In fact, my husband and I met Jerry when we hired him to secure our wedding when MAGA protesters threatened our very precious and sacred event. He has always put the people of our community first, and his deep desire to serve his community is an inspiration to all who have had the opportunity to experience his passion for protecting our community's most vulnerable. In addition to his law enforcement career, Detective Gatchett is an ordained minister and a devoted follower of Jesus Christ. He is also a loving husband, father, and grandfather. No one deserves retirement more than Jerry, but I know he won't be retiring for real, as he has been sworn into the APD Reserve, so I'm sure we'll continue to see him serving our community in his own special way. On behalf of Ohio's 13th Congressional District, I would like to congratulate and thank Detective Gary Gatchett on a storied career at the Akron Police Department and for over 31 years of outstanding service and devotion to our community and our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Illinois, Mrs. Ramirez, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today as we celebrate Black History Month to uplift two of my constituents and pillars of the Hanover Park community, Eva and Herb Porter. Both have shared more than 40 years of love, of leadership, and unwavering dedication to civic engagement. Eva Porter is a beloved retired educator in our community, and after 30 years of teaching, she has continued to shape young minds in and beyond the classroom. Eva has served as a trustee of the Poplar Creek Library Board and as a board member for School District U46. Her passion for service shines through her volunteer work with organizations like Kids Hope USA and the American Cancer Society. Eva's passion and commitment to public service is matched only by her dear husband, Herb. Currently serving as a deputy mayor of Hanover Park, Herb Porter became the first ever African-American Hanover Park trustee when he was elected in 2019. With nearly a decade of elected office, Herb is currently the longest-serving African-American public official in the Northwest suburban area. He continues to serve his community in his roles as on the governing board for the Community and Economic Development Association of Cook County, as well as the board of the Alignment Collaborative for Education. Proud members of DuPage NAACP, Eva and Herb Porter's legacy of service and uplifting diversity and equity have inspired countless community members to get involved in civic engagement, including their daughter, Dr. Chantel Porter, who was just elected as the first Black female judge in DuPage County in 2022. While we think of being first and only, we know we still have a long way to go to truly have parity and representation across this country. But the Porter's family's extensive service to the Hanover Park community is a reminder of just how seriously our local communities take our responsibility to serve our neighbors and to do so with compassion and care. So today, I rise to speak of their leadership, to speak of their dedication, and the exemplary service which serves as a reminder to each of us here in Congress that we also have the very same responsibility to care for our neighbors and our working families, not special interests and unaccountable billionaires. As we take the time to celebrate history, we're also reminded that we are making history every single day in these chambers and back home in our districts. Let it be good history. Let it be history that we're proud of. Our constituents, including Herb and Eva, are meeting this moment with the urgency it deserves, and they rightfully expect us to follow their lead. I know I will. And so on behalf of Illinois' 3rd Congressional District, on this 25th day of February 2025, I commend Eva and Herb Porter for their lifelong commitment to modeling civic responsibility, community service, and courageous leadership. Thank you, Eva and Herb. Congratulations. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes a gentleman from Puerto Rico, Mr. Hernandez Rivera, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during the past weeks, the federal government has been cruel to its workforce. It has offered deferred resignations, it has laid off employees, it has sent employees confusing information. As Jorge Santiago Rivera, a labor leader from the Department of Veterans Affairs in the island, has put it, the truth is that yes, we live under fear. We live under uncertainty. I worry about the well-being of our federal workers. I worry in particular about the well-being of the 13,000 federal employees that reside in Puerto Rico. But I also worry about the thousands of veterans that rely on the VA for their health care needs in Puerto Rico. Why? Because the lack of structure and logic behind these cuts directly affects them. As Mr. Santiago asks, if you lose 10 emergency workers from the ER, who helps the patients? Unsurprisingly, the VA is now scrambling to deny deferred resignation requests, and in the past, it has had to rehire workers that it laid off. The VA is not the only federal agency in the island affected by this chaotic, irresponsible, negligent program of federal cuts. The IRS reportedly laid off around 200 workers. The National Park Service, the USDA, the National Forest Service are also laying off employees. As Brenda Reyes Tomasini, a labor leader from the EPA, another agency affected, described it, it's devastating. Truly, a brutal level of anxiety. And what makes this even worse is the process. Some of these employees have worked for the federal government for 15 or 20 years. They transferred to new positions, appear as if they are on probation, and have been terminated. That is unacceptable. Members of this Congress have not received accurate information about what's happening. I'll be the first one to acknowledge that government waste exists. It exists at the federal level. It exists at the state level. It exists at the municipal level. But protecting our veterans is not government waste. Protecting our national parks, protecting our national forests like El Yunque is not government waste. Protecting the employees that work hard to ensure that millionaires and billionaires don't cheat on their taxes is not government waste. It is what government is for. In the coming days, my office will be taking action. We will share resources for federal employees so that they know their rights. We will host a teletown hall to hear directly from affected workers. We will demand transparency from the agencies responsible for these layoffs. I also urge the government of Puerto Rico to step up, to provide these workers the assistance that the government of Puerto Rico usually provides to workers who are laid off in the tourism or manufacturing sectors. To the workers affected, I want to send a clear message. I know that being laid off is painful. It hurts your finances, it hurts your stability, it can even hurt your sense of self-worth. But let me be clear. You are not the problem. Your government is the problem. We see you, we hear you, and we will fight for you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back the remainder of my time.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Klein, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize and honor an extraordinary American, a true hero in every sense, George Walton Weller. For 65 years, Mr. Weller has dedicated his life to the safety and well-being of his community through the Verona Volunteer Fire Company. Helping to found the fire company in 1959, he remains an active member to this day at age 91. His unwavering commitment to service and deep sense of duty are nothing short of inspiring. Long before he answered the call as a firefighter, Mr. Weller bravely served our nation as a member of the United States Air Force. Serving for 4 years during the Vietnam War, he defended the freedoms we hold dear. Mr. Weller has strengthened his community in the generations of firefighters he has mentored and his example of dedication. Few can claim such a legacy, and today we recognize and thank George Walton Weller for his extraordinary contributions and selfless acts of service. He embodies the very best of America, and we are forever indebted to him. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the 150th anniversary of Shenandoah University, a proud institution in historic Winchester, Virginia, that has shaped minds and transformed lives for a century and a half. Founded on February 12, 1875 in Dayton, Virginia, Shenandoah took a bold step back in 1960, relocating 75 miles north to Winchester and paving the way for its continued growth and success. For 150 years, Shenandoah University has remained steadfast in its mission to provide innovative, high-quality, and student-focused education, always keeping the community at its heart. The university's legacy has been shaped by visionary leaders from A.P. Funkhauser, its founder, to Dr. Forrest Racy, who led its relocation, and Dr. James Davis, under whose leadership it became a university. Today, that tradition of excellence continues under Dr. Tracy Fitzsimmons, Shenandoah's first female president, who has guided its remarkable growth. Please join me in congratulating Shenandoah University on this historic milestone.